return to the Manti Te'o story, please?
Sure.
There's so many questions. So much that I still do not understand after weeks and weeks of silence. We now know that he is speaking out to Katie Couric. We're going to get a chance to hear that interview today. This morning, we have a panel of experts to talk about it, too. Doug Eldridge is a sports agent, founder of DLE Sports Management Group. Chris Draft has played football with the Atlanta Falcons, among other teams. He's the CEO and president of the Chris Draft Family Foundation. Also, Granderson is with us. He's a senior writer for ESPN, a CNN contributor. So much to talk about. Let's see, where do we begin? Chris, let me start with you, because I want to understand what you think the impact of all of this will be.
I can't hear anything.
Can you not hear me? You know what? Let's see if I can fix your audio, and I'll turn to Doug instead. Doug, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, good. Well, they're fixing Chris's audio. I'll ask you the question I was going to ask him. What do you think the impact is as he goes into the combine, into the draft around, this is a national story and a scandal and hugely embarrassing. So what does it mean to him, on the ground there as he goes through this with other players?
Well, I think it's a twofold question. First of all is what is the impact on his draft? And the second of all is what is the overarching impact on his marketability, meaning sponsorships and endorsements moving forward? And when you dissect that question, it's a question of performance versus perception. On the NFL side, it's a question of how is Manti going to perform on the field? And this is no longer a scouting issue, it's a personnel issue, meaning they need to look at behind the scenes and what really went into this. And each NFL team has in-depth investigation units that will get to the bottom of that. That's the performance component. On the perception side, as it relates to his marketability and his endorsement capacity moving forward, it's a question of fan perception. How do they view him? What do they feel ultimately his role is in this? And how do they align themselves with him insofar as likability?
Can I add another P? And I'll bring in Chris, whose audio I think has been fixed. How about pressure? I mean,
Yes.
You talked about performance perception. How about just the pressure of going into this with the sort of the eyes of the nation now watching every single thing you're doing as a football player? Tell me about that.
Well, it's a huge amount of pressure for Manti, but he dealt with a lot of pressure throughout the season. So you were able to see with all this going on that he was able to perform well on the field. I think the question still right now is what's the truth? And I think as an NFL team, that's what you have to find out is what is
not
what is
really the BCS game, right? I mean, that one, which we know was...
With all due respect, Chris, when he knew what the truth was of the story, allegedly, he had his worst game of the season against Alabama. So there is some evidence that this scandal can affect his play.
Well, definitely the scandal, it can affect his play. You were able to see that, but that doesn't mean that it was all about the scandal. Alabama is a great team. I think he has to deal with it. He has to deal with it right now, and the NFL is going to make sure it's dealt with. They're going to have great investigators that look into it. I mean, right now we're talking about the draft status. The draft status is about his combine performance, all those things on the field, but then they're going to have to find out exactly what's going on with this story. I think as the truth gets out, it's going to allow him to be able to be more confident.
One of the things we do know is that he lied. He told Katie Couric that he lied after the fact about, well, here, let's play a little bit of what he said to Katie.
You stuck to the script, and you knew that something was amiss, Manti.
Correct.
Why?
Well, anybody put yourself in my situation. Katie, put yourself in my situation. This girl who I committed myself to died on September 12th. Now I get a phone call on December 6th saying that she's alive, and then I'm going to be put on national TV 2 days later, and they ask me about the same question. What would you do?
Is that a reasonable point? Like, honestly, given LZ, given all that had happened, why not? I mean, it doesn't make sense for, by the way, he's a young guy about to play a really important game.
Right. In December, that makes all the sense in the world to me. In January, that makes no sense in the world to me. Why did you let a month go by before the University of Notre Dame, before your father, who's teary-eyed and saying you're not a liar, why did you let a month go by before Deadspin outed you with this story? Why not call a press conference and then, without the pressure of the Heisman, without the pressure of just finishing a season, why not just then say, you know what, I was duped, I apologize, let's move forward, and then play in the championship game.
I am dying to watch this interview today because
Katie Couric's interview is going to help us know some of these things about whether or not we can believe Manti Te'o or not. Let me return to this concept of Manti's future for a moment. Doug, the agent we're speaking with here, separated performance from perception, but I want to go back to that performance thing, LZ. that's not limited to the field, right? Manti Te'o has to now go into locker rooms in the NFL. Well, whether or not he was the victim or he was part of this hoax, I can't imagine that's going to go over well in the locker room.
Listen, every rookie, regardless of the league, goes through a period of hazing. This is just going to be part of his period of hazing. He's going to get the donuts. He's going to get the donuts. He's going to get, the water for the veterans and all of that. And they're going to do a lot of Te'oing, with the arm and teaching like that. But if you are a lottery team, chances are your defense is suspect. If he performs well,
he can get over it.
He's going to get over it.
LZ and Chris and Doug, thanks guys, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Completely disagree with you on LZ on that last answer. I think you're right, Will Cain.